afterwards we're going to take up a donation so we can make an ark to get through all this rain that we've been having. But I know we've needed it. It's been good to have the rain. Hope everyone stays safe on the way home tonight. So as Brother Bob mentioned last week, the elders asked me to step in and teach for a little while in here in the adult class. And I was thinking about what I wanted to teach on, and I had a couple of ideas, and we're going to start with the book that I'm going to be using. We're going to start with that a little bit tonight, but then it dovetails really well with actually an article that I had seen recently that I felt was really good, and so I want to build on that. But before I tell you what we're going to be studying, I actually want to read you a little excerpt from this book. It says, it was the 6th of March, 1987. The Herald of Free Enterprise, a ferry, was transporting cars between Dover, England, and Zeebrugge, Belgium. Cars were loaded through a front opening in the ship so they could be loaded onto the lower deck. On that March winter night, with 563 passengers aboard, along with vehicles, Captain David Lurie put to sea. It was dark, 7 p.m. All went well in the safe harbor, but 1 mile out, 90 seconds after reaching the high seas, the ship capsized and sank within 5 minutes. On that fatal night, the ship had sailed with its front loading doors wide open. There was no indicator light on the bridge to alert the captain, so he had assumed the sailor responsible for closing the doors had done so. Instead, he was asleep in his cabin. Because Assistant Boatswain Mark Stanley was asleep on the job, 193 people died. The book we're looking at is Christians Wake Up. If you remember last year, we did the Deacons Wake Up when we installed some of the new deacons. And the deacons went through and taught that. And I had seen, after we started that Brother J.J. Turner, who wrote the other one, had written a follow-up that's for all of us, not just for deacons. There's 4 total books in the series. There's one for elders and I think one for preachers that he's written. But this one was the 4th one. And so I thought that was a good topic for us to look at. And there's another excerpt I want to read from this that leads into this other article that I had seen. And this article is actually what got me thinking about doing a class along these lines and made me remember about this book. But in this first chapter of the book here, it's just entitled, It's Time to Wake Up. He says, open your eyes to the condition of the world and churches. It has been said that only 17% of Americans attend church on any given Sunday. Atheism is the fastest growing religion in America. I don't know if you can call it a religion, but more church doors are closing than new ones are opening in America. Launched by the Master's marching orders to go into the whole world and preach the gospel, we have taken sanctuary in our buildings and complained about how dark it is outside. We have been arguing about deck chairs while the old ship of Zion is sinking. We have failed to realize that it has never been this late before. Christians, wake up. The battle is raging. Crew members are abandoning the battleship or booking passage on a cruise ship where the food buffet is open so passengers can pick and choose the theological diets they prefer. A paid crew takes care of all the duties while we enjoy the fun and games created and led by cruise counselors. No one is manning the battle stations. The things he's saying, when we think about the condition of the church today, not just the church as we know it, but Christianity in general in our nation, there's so much division. As he mentioned there, people take this buffet-style approach to church and to Christianity and pick and choose what they want. And so what I want to look at tonight and focus on mostly tonight is this article. I found it on, actually somebody posted it on Facebook. I don't remember if it was somebody here or one of my other friends from somewhere else that posted it. It's from Focus Press website, which is the one run by Brad Harrop. He didn't write this particular article. But the title of the article is, "Are you a church member or a church customer?" And that hit me pretty hard when I read through the article. It's written very well. But what I want to look at as we go through this is relating to certain areas. What's the difference between a church member and a church customer? And where do we fit in that category? And as I was reading through, at first I thought, well, I'm a member. I'm not a customer. I'm not looking around. I'm not shopping around. But there were some eye-opening things that he said that I think we can gain a lot from. The first one and the obvious one is church itself. So a church member versus a church customer, what are you looking for in a church? What's a church customer looking for? What's that?
What benefits me?
What benefits me, right? We in our society, we're a consumer-driven society, right? Especially in this nation, we're trained to be consumers. I'm the type of person, when I go to buy something, especially when I'm buying it online, I'll read all the reviews that I can find on it. Look at all the different options. My wife will tell you it takes me forever to make a decision on something I want to buy. Got to find the best price for it and all that stuff. So we're always looking for what's best for us. Is this going to get me the most bang for my buck? Is this going to be a good quality product, whatever it is? So we shop around and we find what works best for us, what fits for us. And so many people have taken that approach to religion, to church. What works best for me? Where do I feel comfortable? Where do I fit in? What fits best for me? Well, of course, we know Ephesians 4, 1 through 6. Can somebody read that for me? I'm going to ask you all to read. Ephesians 4, 1 through 6.
I, therefore, a prisoner for the Lord, urge you to walk in a manner worthy of the calling to which you have been called, with all humility and gentleness, with patience, bearing with one another in love, eager to maintain the unity of the Spirit in the bond of peace. There is one body and one Spirit, just as you were called to the one hope that belongs to your call. One Lord, one faith, one baptism, one God and Father of all, who is over all and through all and in all.
One. There's one choice. Right? We don't have all these choices that we can make. We don't get to decide what fits best for us, what works best for us. There's one choice. Well, there's two choices. You either are a Christian or you're not. But if you want to be a Christian and you want to follow God, then there's one choice. There's one body, one faith. There's not all these different choices that we can make, all these different options. And if we would just take that approach, and the other part of it too is walk in a manner worthy of the calling with which you have been called. Now, we know we're not all individually, we don't receive a voice in the night that calls us and tells us, to come and be Christians, but we are called by Jesus to follow after him, to follow the gospel call. And so it's not us going out to find what we want. It's God and Christ are calling us to come to the right place, to come to them. And of course, if we were to do that, the outcome would be unity. If everyone were to take that approach and realize that, I've mentioned before, growing up with my dad in the Air Force, we moved around a lot, and a couple of different places we lived, we didn't really have a lot of options as far as where we went to church. We lived in Las Vegas for a while, Sin City. There was, I think, only 2 congregations at the time we were living there, of the church there. Actual Church of Christ out there in that city. So we didn't have much choice. We lived in Germany for 3 years. There was only 1 congregation within 3 hours of where we lived. Luckily, it was within the city that we were living in, but there was only 1 congregation there. So we didn't have a choice. And we had a lot of different ideas in the people that were there. Some people that now have moved, that we're all back here in the United States, we've got all these choices now. A lot of those people have gone off to other denominations or other religious groups or completely stopped going to church or whatever. But when we were there, and we only had 1 choice, and we were the body of Christ that was there, just what we were talking about, the idea of, we use that term a lot, church shopping. That's what a customer does. And of course, when we look at how we live our lives and the lifestyle that we should have, again, a customer is looking for whatever makes me feel good. But if we're true Christians, we're members of the body, what's our life going to be about? What is the life of a Christian supposed to be about?
Life of a Christian should be going out and spreading the gospel and trying to bring the lost to help them.
Glorifying God.
Yeah.
Glorifying God?
Serving.
Serving. It's about service. All those go into that idea.
Right.
That we should be about service. The customer is what's the customer's always right. Exactly.
No matter how wrong they are.
Exactly. The customer is always right. Is the approach that we take. But somebody read for me Matthew chapter 20, verses 25 through 28.
But Jesus called them unto him and said, You know that the princes of the Gentiles exercise dominion over them, and they that are great exercise authority upon them. But it shall not be so among you, but whosoever will be great among you, let him be your minister. And whosoever will be chief among you, let him be your servant. Even as the Son of Man came not to be ministered unto, but to minister, and to give his life a ransom for many.
We're here to serve. We're here to put ourselves last, which is the complete opposite of the customer viewpoint, of the consumer viewpoint. We're not first, we're last, which means what we want doesn't matter. Doesn't matter at all. And that's not to sound harsh, but as Brian said, if we study and realize and recognize the Christian way is the best way, then our wants and our desires just get in the way of that. We talked about, if I remember correctly, when I was teaching last time, talking about the life of Christ and talking about sin in general, that sin really goes back to our desires. It's the root of it. And so if we can get rid of those desires, if we can rein in those desires, then that gets rid of a lot of our pain and suffering that we go through. So in the little bit of time we've got left, this customer viewpoint, we've talked about this as we've gone along. How has this affected the church? And not just religion in general, but the church of Christ. Because make no mistake, it's affected the church of Christ.
Chris, if we take that approach, the customer's always right, and that's how we view potential new patrons. We're going to do whatever they demand. We're going to do whatever they want. So preachers will tailor make their sermons to suit and accommodate whatever it is they want, because they're right. It's not about seeking the will of God and doing the will of God. It's about, like you said, pleasing those who we want to attract. The problem with that, especially for a congregation like ours, if we're trying to cater to those wants and those desires, and we're trying to tailor make our services, our message, to suit what they want, there are many churches that can do it far better than we can. And that's not at all who we are. It's not what we're here for. We're here to glorify God. We're here to seek God. We're here to know God. We're here to draw closer to Him. We're here for salvation. That's what we're doing here. It's not about these felt needs and what the church can offer me and do for me. It's more, God, what would you have me to do? And those are the kind of people that we're looking to attract, not the customers, but actual members of the body. And if you're thinking about it in terms of preacher or elder or Bible class teacher, if you're thinking in terms of marketing the church, we're going to have to really pick up the pace here, because Joel Osteen has shown what it takes to attract large numbers and get people in there and large amounts of money coming every week. I mean, if that's what we want to do, we better kick it in high gear, because and if we're not going to do that, and we don't think we can do that, and we know we shouldn't do that, we need to stop thinking that way at all. If I should seek to please men, I should not be a servant of Christ. And that's what Paul was saying in Galatians. And you really have to think about where's your interest. And that starts from the top down in the local church. How does the preacher, how do the elders, how do the deacons, how do the Bible class teachers, how do we all perceive our own relationship with God? And that permeates. That creates the atmosphere. And when people visit here, they may be shopping for what they want, but when they come here, we hope we can slam them upside the head with a dose of, we're here to serve God and see what God wants and what pleases the Lord. And that's so unique today that if you want to think of it in those terms, a lot of times people are looking for sushi. When you're tired of Big Macs all the time, and the Big Macs and their Whoppers and Taco Bell, but sometimes people want something weird and different. And I'm not saying that to be disrespectful, but if you think about it that way, in a marketing sense, we have a very unique product. But not that it's a product, but I'm just saying we just need to stick to the old Jerusalem gospel, and through good or through bad times, and that should be our emphasis always.
Well, and the problem too with trying to please people, meet those expectations, cater to what they want. Everybody wants different things, right? I mean, I honestly think that's why we have so much division now. Because you've got to have a church for everybody, right? Every different desire, every different want. You've got to have the church for this attitude or that attitude or whatever. And that's why we've got so many of them. And people look at it and go, oh, that's great. I can go wherever I want and get the service that I want. The service that I want. When it's not about us. It's not about that.
Chris, real quick. Marketing gimmicks may produce numbers, but they don't produce Christians. There's no better way than God's way.
Yeah, that's the next part of this. We're concerned with quantity and not quality. In the article, it talks about, it talks about having that vision for how are we going to bring people in. It says, if get people to come to church is the goal, then the pews will be packed with a customer mindset. If we ask ourselves, which would I rather start with? 20 dedicated Christians or 200 customers? And see how we answer that with our actions, like our outreach strategies and the way we organize our church. It tells us what our purpose truly is. Getting people in the door and getting our numbers up cannot be our end goal.
Transforming lives, if you recall.
Romans 12. Romans 12, 1 through 2. I appeal you, therefore, brothers, by the mercies of God, to present your bodies as a living sacrifice, holy and acceptable to God, which is your spiritual worship. Do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewal of your mind, that by testing you may discern what is the will of God, what is good and acceptable and perfect. We should be about transforming ourselves away from what this world is, away from the attitudes of the world, and toward Christ. We talked about it earlier with evangelism, and I don't think I ever connected the dots and made this point. With a customer mindset, we're attracting customers. If we've got the member mindset, we're making disciples. That's what the Great Commission said. That's what Jesus told the disciples. That was the marching orders. Go out and make disciples. He didn't say go out and fill the pews. He didn't say go out and cater to everybody so everybody will come and hear this message. No, go make disciples. And if you look at what happened to the disciples, it's not all about getting what we want. It's not all about an easy life in this world. Make no mistake, we will suffer in this life. And the other part of it is if we're looking for customers, then our focus is entertaining and not equipping. We read a little bit from Ephesians 4 earlier. Somebody can go back there and read Ephesians 4, 11 through 16.
some pastors and teachers, for the perfecting of the saints, for the work of the ministry, for the edifying of the body of Christ, till we all come in the unity of the faith and of the knowledge of the Son of God, unto a perfect man, unto the measure of the stature of the fullness of Christ, that we henceforth be no more children, tossed to and fro, and carried about with every wind of doctrine, by the sleight of men and cunning craftiness, whereby they lie in wait to deceive. But speaking the truth in love may grow up into him in all things, which is the head, even Christ, from whom the whole body fitly joined together, and compacted by that which every joint, according to the effectual working in the measure of every part, make the increase of the body unto the edifying of itself in love. To which verse?
Yeah, that was it, to verse 16. You know, our focus should be equipping. It should be building each other up. And the whole point of that is unity, until we all attain to the unity of the faith and the knowledge of the Son of God, to mature manhood. The whole body joined and fit together, each part working properly, makes the body grow so that it builds itself up in love. If that's our focus, if our focus is God, is learning more about Him, learning more about His Word, what He wants us to do, equipping each other, building each other up. You know, when we look for whatever we want and go wherever we want, then we're not building each other up. We're just looking for what makes us feel good. And building each other up is not about what makes us feel good. Sometimes to build other people up, we have to put ourselves to the side. Right?
It also, in order to build each other up, requires actions on our part.
That goes back to the idea too of customers don't have investment in the companies that they're buying products from. They're just wanting them for the products. We should be invested in the body. We are part of the body. We're part of the family. And if we don't do our part, then the family suffers.
Jesus kind of said it like this in Matthew chapter 5, verse 13. You're the salt of the earth. If the salt has lost its flavor, then it's good for nothing to be thrown out and trodden under the foot of man. If that's what God said, that's what Jesus said on the Sermon on the Mount.
Yeah.
So it's not just what a man will think about you, or even if a man even think that about you. It's what God will think about you. If we don't present ourselves as that salt that we're supposed to be, to draw people in and let the word take over and become members of the Lord's church. The only way that's going to happen is if we do our part.
I think we're about out of time. There's a glare up there. I want to read a little bit more from this, and this section here was the part that kind of hit me as I read this article. The customer is always right, the old business saying goes. Because of this, the customers know they have leverage. When things aren't as they like, some people complain until they get their way. They threaten to take their business elsewhere. In the age of social media, they might even write a review to complain to others about the company. Customer Christians do essentially the same thing. It might be that they don't like the song selection, that the sermon was too long, that the proverbial carpet color of their choice wasn't chosen, or that they weren't specifically catered to in some way. So they complain, cause division, and threaten to leave because the customer is always right.